Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Expensive Connoisseur World, where we dive deep into the world of coins, collectibles, and there, on one side, a 1984 United States 5-cent Jefferson nickel that carries the familiar American legends "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and "E Pluribus Unum," and on the other, French coins that proclaim liberté, égalité, fraternité, and bear the name often seen in tiny letters on the obverse of the sculptor Henry Lagerfeuille, who designed several post-war Republic francs issues. So here's a long, single-flow explanation tying all of that together. The 1984 D. Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, hence the D mint mark, in enormous, everyday money quantities. So most pieces you find in circulation are worth exactly 5 cents unless they are in unusually high mint state. Grades think sharply struck, booming luster, and virtually no contact marks that third-party grading services would certify as MS65, MS66 or better, at which point collectors may pay a modest premium. The design type itself goes back to 1938, when the U.S. Mint replaced the Buffalo nickel with a portrait of Thomas Jefferson by Felix Schlag on the obverse and Jefferson's home, Monticello, on the reverse. Liberty and the date appear. To the right of Jefferson's bust, "In God We Trust" arcs along the left, and "E Pluribus Unum," Monticello, 5 cents, and "United States of America" anchor the reverse around the neoclassical facade. Technically, your 1984 D nickel should weigh 5.00 grams, measure 21.2 millimeters across, have a plain edge, and be struck in the standard nickel alloy the denomination has used since 1866 to 75% copper, 25% nickel. Despite the name, nickels are mostly copper because 1980s nickels were churned out for commerce during a period of inflation and heavy use. Most survivors are well worn. True condition rarities are those with superb eye appeal. Completely full steps on Monticello, the so-called full steps designation, which indicates a strong, well-struck reverse and problem-free surfaces. Meanwhile, the appearance of liberté, égalité, fraternité, and Republic francs points us to a very different tradition. Modern French coins, especially the light aluminum and aluminum bronze pieces of the late Fourth Republic and early Fifth Republic, roughly the late 1940s through the 1950s, many of which were modeled by Henry Lagerfeuille 1908 to 1981. A respected French sculptor and medalist whose name, in tiny script Lagerfeuille, appears on a number of post-war French denominations, notably 1 franc, 2 francs, and 5 francs types dated mostly 1950 to 1959. Those coins typically show Marianne, the allegorical embodiment of the French Republic, wearing a Phrygian cap radiating a serene, neoclassical dignity on the obverse, while the reverse celebrates the French national motto, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, around agricultural motifs, wheat ears, olive branches, oak leaves that symbolized post-war recovery, prosperity, and Republican virtue. Where the American nickel's mottos, "In God We Trust," added to circulating coins during the Civil War era, and "E Pluribus Unum," adopted by Congress in 1782 and placed on coins starting in the late 18th century, emphasized divine trust, and Federal Union, the French motto born of the French Revolution and enshrined in the Third Republic, onward foregrounds the secular civic values of freedom, equality, and brotherhood. From a collecting standpoint, U.S. Jefferson nickels and mid-century French francs occupy different niches. The 1984 D nickel is a bread and butter modern piece where only top-graded, fully struck examples or unusual mint errors, dramatic off-centers, broad strikes, double dies command much attention, whereas Lagerfeuille signed French coins are often sought either as inexpensive historical type coins because millions were minted, and many survive in high grade due to their soft aluminum composition and limited heavy circulation late in the series, or as part of specialized design, art metal, or French Republican history collections. If you're trying to authenticate and evaluate either side of this phrase salad, the process is similar. First, verify the weight, diameter, and metal to rule out obvious counterfeits. Inspect the edge plane for both these families of coins. Learn the key diagnostics for the nickel, the sharpness of Monticello's steps, and the quality of the fields. For the French pieces, the crispness of Marianne's features, lettering, and the very fine signature script Lagerfeuille. And then compare what you have to reputable grading images to decide where it might fall on the scale from about uncirculated to various mint state MS levels. Financially, don't expect a windfall. Your run-of-the-mill 1984 D nickel is almost never rare, and most post-war Lagerfeuille French francs remain common though superb, fully lustrous pieces. In slabs, complete date runs, or era varieties can still be fun and modestly valuable. Historically and culturally, however, both coins are eloquent. One tiny planchette from 1980s America speaks to federal unity, religious trust, and a founding father's Enlightenment legacy, while the other, a few grams of post-war French aluminum, designed by Henry Lagerfeuille, distills the revolutionary credo of 1789 into a compact, pocket-sized sculpture of Marie Antoinations, to mottos, to engraver lineages, and to very different political philosophies, all converging in the humble everyday objects we pass without thought, yet which, properly read, carry centuries of ideology, art, and economic history in there. Tiny rings of metal. If you can tell me exactly which coin or coins you have in hand, date, mint mark, country, and what the obverse and reverse look like, I can narrow this down to die varieties, exact mintages, current auction records, and realistic price ranges. The next up top to it sounds like you've mashed together two different numismatic worlds and one long, flowing, everything -in-one paragraph explanation. The 1999 D United States 5 cents Jefferson nickel with its mottos E pluribus unum, In God We Trust, Liberty, United States of America, and on the other side of the Atlantic, French coins that carry the Republican motto Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, and sometimes the signature Lagerfeuille, almost certainly referring to the French sculptor medalist Henry Lagerfeuille, occasionally seen on French medals and patterns. So let's stitch these together. The 1999 D Jefferson nickel is a copper nickel-clad coin, 75% copper, 25% nickel over a pure copper core, though commonly described simply as a QNIL weighing 5.00 g, 21.1 millimeters in diameter. Struck at the Denver Mint, hence the D Mint mark, in huge quantities, well over 1 billion pieces, as part of the long-running Jefferson Nickels series, first introduced in 1938 with Felix Schlag's winning design. The obverse shows Thomas Jefferson's left-facing portrait with In God We Trust to the left and Liberty plus the date to the right on pre-2005 nickels. Liberty is in block capitals. The cursive Jefferson Liberty only appears in the 2005 Six Westward Journey redesigns, while the reverse up through 2003 depicts Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, with the denomination 5 cents and E pluribus unum above the building and United States of America below. For everyday collectors, a 1999 D in normal circulated condition is worth only face value or a few cents more because of the massive mintage and the lack of silver or other intrinsic metal value, but in high mint state, say MS 66 and above, certified by PCGS and GC, the coin can be worth several dollars to perhaps a few tens of dollars when exceptionally well struck and virtually mark-free. Varieties to watch for on late 1990s nickels are mostly about striking quality weak steps on Monticello versus the coveted full steps designation, which indicates sharp, uninterrupted detail on the steps of Monticello and can raise value markedly. Die deterioration doubling, or minor die chips, none of which are mainstream household varieties, but specialists do look. Now, why all the mottos? E pluribus unum out of many. One is a unifying national motto used on U.S. coinage since the late 18th century and codified by the Coinage Act traditions, while In God We Trust first appeared on a 2-cent piece in 1864 and was gradually extended to all U.S. coins, becoming the official national motto in 1956, hence its omnipresence on modern American money. Liberty has been an almost constant inscription on U.S. coinage from the beginning, reflecting the Enlightenment ideals the founders claimed. And on Jefferson nickels it doubly resonates because Jefferson's own political philosophy centered on liberty and republicanism. Hop over to France and you encounter a different but philosophically related rhetorical triad, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, which emerged during the French Revolution 1789 and progressively became institutionalized, appearing with growing regularity on coinage of the Third Republic from 1870 onward and then essentially standard on most circulating French coins of the 20th century. For example, the iconic Semus designs by Louis-Oscar Rodi on silver. And later nickel coinage, the revived Hercule type by Augustin Desprez on 5-franc pieces, and numerous Marianne effigies, right up until the franc gave way to the euro in 2002. The name Lagerfeuille you typed very likely points to Henry Lagerfeuille 1907 to 1981, a French sculptor and medalist who produced official portraits, medals, and some numismatic designs. Collectors occasionally see his signature on medals and in wider French art circles on public sculptures. And while he isn't the single dominant name on circulating 20th century French coins, that honor is more commonly shared among figures like Rodi, Desprez, Raymond Joly, Georges Giraud, André Lavrelière, Lucien Bézard, etc. His surname shows up often enough in French medallic art that it enters the numismatist's vocabulary. French Republican coins typically spell out Republique Francaise or abbreviated Republique Francaise on one side. Pair the Marianne allegory, liberty personified, or other classical motifs with agricultural symbols like wheat ears, olive branches, acorns, or laurel signifying peace, fertility, strength, and then carry liberté, eagle-eye, for turn it as a ring inscription, or in the legend this constant visual vocabulary codifies the state's foundational ideals the way liberty and e pluribus unum do for the U.S. Putting the two traditions in dialogue, you could read both countries' coins as small, mass-circulated civics lessons. The U.S. nickel quietly reaffirms federal unity, pluribus unum, divine trust in God we trust, and personal liberty, anchored by a founding father and his neoclassical home, while French coins trumpet the revolutionary triad of political rights and social cohesion, anchored by an allegorical female figure, Marianne, who is not a specific person, but an embodiment of the Republic itself. In terms of collectability, the 1999 D nickel is common, but still interesting to pursue in certified high grades or with full steps, and it fits neatly into type sets: a modern nickel typeset, a Jefferson Nickels détaillement set, or a 20th century U.S. type collection, whereas French Liberté, eagle-eye, for turnip pieces invite an entire rabbit hole of type collecting by Republic III. VTH by designer Rodi versus Desprez versus Joly, etc. by metal, silver, nickel, aluminum, bronze, or by denomination centimes to multi-francs. And if you specifically chase signatures or engravers, then tracking down works actually. Signed Lagerfeuille becomes a specialist's pursuit across coins, medals, and plaquettes. Historically, both traditions also show how political messaging on coinage adapts to legislation and taste. In the U.S., Jefferson's portrait was modestly refreshed in 1966-67 to restore design detail after years of dye wear, then overhauled in 2005-06 for the Westward Journey series that retold the Lewis and Clark expedition, and again in 2006 with a new forward-facing Jefferson and his own Liberty inscript. While France's late 20th century coins experimented with more modern, minimalist lettering and stylized motifs before the euro arrived, which itself retained national side designs, France chose another Marianne by Laurent Joriot and later motifs, but lost the explicit liberté, eagle-eye, fraternate legend on the circulating common reverse, reminding us that supranational currency tends to homogenize visual cues even as national sides struggle to preserve identity. Finally, for anyone holding a 1999 D nickel and wondering if it's special, check for sharp steps on Monticello, immaculate luster, and near-perfect surfaces. If it looks like it just left the press, it may merit certification, but for most circulated examples, its worth lies in the story it tells about American mottos and mid-century design continuity. And that's precisely the story that, when paired with France's Republican legends and artists like Lagerfeuille, lets you see coins not as pocket change, but as durable, state-sponsored micro-documents of political philosophy, artistic fashion, metallurgical economics, and the way nations teach values to citizens a few grams at a time. The next up, top 3, the coin described as Liberty Eaglite for turn at 5 cents 1989 p. United States of America e pluribus unum in God we trust. Liberty Republic Lagerfeuille is a mix of elements from both American and French numismatic traditions, and its description suggests either a commemorative or artistic interpretation rather than a standard U.S. coin. A regular United States nickel from 1989, specifically the Jefferson nickel, carries the denomination 5 cents and features President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," Liberty, the mint mark P for Philadelphia, and the year 1989. The reverse of this U.S. nickel depicts Jefferson's Monticello home along with the phrases "E pluribus unum" and "United States of America." However, the phrase "Liberty Eaglite Fraternit" is the national motto of France, meaning liberty, equality, fraternity, and is not found on official U.S. coins. The mention of Republic and Lagerfeuille further adds a French connection. Eric Lagrif, or similar names, are known in the context of French medallic art and coin design, suggesting that the piece might be a French commemorative token, an artistic creation, or even a fantasy piece merging U.S. and French motifs. To understand its background, we need to distinguish between genuine U.S. mint issues and numismatic collectibles or medallions produced for artistic or commemorative reasons. The Jefferson Nickels series, struck since 1938, has not incorporated foreign mottos such as Liberté Eaglite Fraternit. If this coin bears such a phrase, it is likely not an official U.S. mint product, but rather a privately struck token, a fantasy issue, or a commemorative medal. The year 1989 marks the bicentennial of the French Revolution 1789 to 1989, which makes it plausible that certain commemorative pieces were issued by French mints or private medalists to celebrate the shared values of liberty and democracy between France and the United States. Artists like Eric Lagriffoul have contributed to modern French coinage, designing medals and commemorative coins for Monnaie de Paris, the Paris Mint, which could explain the Lagriffoul name. These pieces often combine symbolic elements, such as the French national motto with universal themes like liberty, fraternity, and trust. If authentic, a coin or token featuring both 5 cents and French mottos would be classified as a numismatic hybrid, possibly made for collectors who appreciate Franco-American history. The presence of P Philadelphia mint mark may simply be an artistic choice or an imitation of U.S. nickel design. Official 1989 Jefferson Nickels minted in Philadelphia have no intrinsic silver value since they are composed of copper-nickel alloy, but they hold historical significance as part of circulating U.S. coinage. In contrast, a French commemorative piece from 1989, particularly celebrating the bicentennial, might have been struck in higher quality metals like silver or bronze and would carry collector value depending on rarity, condition, and demand. Overall, this piece embodies a fusion of French and American ideals, with "In God We Trust" reflecting U.S. national faith-based motto and Liberty Eaglite Fraternit symbolizing French revolutionary ideals. The reference to Republic reinforces the democratic principles common to both nations. Collectors of world coins and medals might find such a piece especially valuable as a representation of cultural and political ideals bridging to nations. For a more precise identification, examining the coin's imagery, metal composition, and engraver's signature such as Lagriffoul would be essential, as many commemorative medals were issued by Monnaie de Paris during the 1989 bicentennial celebrations. These items are often documented in French numismatic catalogs, which would confirm their designer, metal type, and mintage numbers. The next up, top for 1989, 5 cents 1994 D. United States of America, e pluribus unum, in God we trust. Liberty, Republic, Lagerfeuille line that, read quickly, stitches together, to quite different numismatic traditions. On the one hand, the familiar U.S. Jefferson nickel dated 1994 D struck at the Denver Mint with its mottos "In God We Trust," Liberty, and E pluribus unum. And on the other, the modern French Republican coinage that for decades has carried the national motto Liberté Eaglite Fraternit together with the legend Republique Francaise. often bearing the discreet signature of the French sculptor engraver Jean Lagriffoul, frequently seen as La Griffouille on the flange. To unpack that mashup properly, start with the 1994 D Jefferson Nickel. It's part of the long-running Jefferson series introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel. Designed by Felix Schlag, and until the redesigns of 2004 to 2006 presented. Year after year, Thomas Jefferson's left-facing bust on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. By 1994, the design had been in continuous use for more than half a century, and Denver struck well over 1 billion pieces that year. So in ordinary circulated condition, the coin is extremely common and typically worth only its face value. The Nickels technical specs remain the classic post-war standard. 75% copper, 25% nickel-clad alloy, 5.00 grams in mass, 21.1 millimeters in diameter, and a plain edge. The mintwork D appears on the obverse to the right of Jefferson's portrait, having moved there from the reverse in 1968. Collectors hunting 1990s Jeffersons usually care about 3 things. 1 grade mint state coins certified at MS66 or better can command a premium simply because very high-end survivors are relatively scarce despite the huge mintage. To the coveted full steps FS designation on Monticello, which demands that the horizontal steps at the base of the building be fully and sharply struck without significant interruptions. And 3 die varieties and errors clashes, die, cracks, off-center strikes, clipped plankets, or late-stage worn dies that create mushy details. Slab inserts may read 5FS or 6FS, with 6 being ideal. For a 1994 D, truly gem FS coins are much tougher than garden variety, mint state pieces, and so can be worth many multiples of face value. The mottos and legends themselves tell a cultural story. In God We Trust has appeared on most U.S. coins since the Civil War era, made mandatory on all coinage by 1955. E pluribus unum out of many, one is the long-standing national motto of unity dating to the 18th century and is placed on the reverse above Monticello and Liberty. In Schlag's distinctive script balances the date on the obverse. Turn now to the French side of your phrase. Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, born of the French Revolution, is the official motto of the French Republic and appears on virtually every circulating French coin of the 20th century, especially the aluminum, bronze, and nickel issues of the Fifth Republic post-1958. The legend Republic Francaise underscores the state's identity, just as United States of America does on U.S. pieces. And Jean Lagriffoul, 1897 to 1988, a prolific French sculptor and medalist, left his mark on numerous circulating denominations, notably the 1, 2, and 5 francs types of the 1950s-1960s, but also on various commemoratives and medals, where his signature, typically La Griffouille, can be found tucked subtly into the design. Lagriffoul's work sits in the broader French tradition that also includes greats like Louis-Oscar Rodi, famed for La Semeuse, Henri-Auguste Paty, and Lucien Bézard. Together, they demonstrate how strongly France fused fine art and coinage, often emphasizing graceful allegories of Marianne, agricultural bounty, or industrial modernity, while repeating the Republican triad of virtues on every flank as a didactic reminder of the Revolution's legacy. In contrast, the United States, while equally proud of national mottos, tended toward portraits of historical individuals, presidents, founders, Native American figures, and architectural icons. Monticello, the Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol, as a way to narrate its history through recognizable faces and buildings rather than abstract personifications. Side by side, then, the 1994 D nickel and a mid-century Lagriffoul signed French franc encapsulate to different state mythologies inscribed in metal. America's coins repeat unity pluribus unum, trust in God, and the celebration of individual founders. France's insist again and again on collective civic virtues, liberty, equality, fraternity, and the Republic as the protagonist, with the engraver's signature a modest but traceable acknowledgement of the artist's hand. From a collector's perspective, both categories reward close reading of tiny details. On the U.S. piece, scrutinize Monticello's steps under magnification to judge FS status, look for die states, and consider premium third-party grading only if the coin is clearly in the gem range. On the French side, train your eye to locate the engraver's signature, date, mint marks like cornucopia Monet de Paris, privy marks of the engraver general, and subtle hub variations that can differentiate scarce subtypes economically. The 1994 D nickel is part of a mass-produced, inflation-resistant fiduciary coinage whose face value still functions in commerce. Most French franc coins bearing Lagerfeuille's name were swept out of circulation when France adopted the euro in 2002, and while common circulated examples trade for very little, high-grade, fully lustrous, or proof-like pieces and low mintage. Commemoratives or pattern strikes can be prized by francophile and art metal specialists. Philosophically, reading the mottos together, Liberty, Liberté shared, Egalite, Fraternit uniquely French, In God We Trust uniquely American, E Pluribus Unum speaking to Federal Union reveals how coins operate as pocket-sized constitutional texts, permanent reminders of what each polity chooses to enthrone as its common creed. Even the dates and mint marks 1994 D versus French lettered Privizen code geography and time. Denver, a modern high-throughput U.S. mint serving a continental economy. Monet de Paris, Europe's oldest continuously operating mint, bridging monarchy, revolution, empire, and republic. Finally, the presence or absence of an artist's visible signature encapsulates a difference of emphasis. U.S. circulating coins long went unsigned on their faces. Designers were often acknowledged only by initials, if at all, while French coinage more openly foregrounded the engraver's authorship, a small but telling nod to the Beaux-Arts lineage of French medallic art. So the compressed litany you wrote to as mottos. French ideals, a date and mint mark, a republic, and an engraver's name actually maps a surprisingly rich comparative journey through metallurgy, motifs, law, culture, and collecting practice, two nations, to motto vocabularies, one shared word liberty, liberté, and one shared idea that values struck into common metal can outlast the hands that spend them, the artists that cut them, and even the currencies that carry them. The next up, top 5, you've packed a handful of famous mottos, languages, names, and coin terms into one line. So here's a single, long, fully stitched together explanation that unpacks everything. What a 2004 P United States 1 dime Roosevelt Dime is. What all of the inscriptions on it: Liberty, In God We Trust, E Pluribus Unum, United States of America, 1 dime mean and where they come from. How the Philadelphia P mint mark fits in. What its metal, size, history, collectability, and era varieties are. And then why you also see the French Republican motto Liberté, Egalite, Fraternit, and the word Republic on French coins and medals, sometimes alongside the surname Lagerfeuille, which is the signature of a French sculptor medalist. Read it straight through and you'll have the long, full details you asked for. When someone says 1 dime to 04p, they're talking about the ordinary US 10-cent coin dated 2004 that was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Hence, the P mint mark on the obverse, to the right of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's neck truncation. Since 1946, the U.S. dime has carried Roosevelt's portrait to honor his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II and, very specifically, his role in founding and championing the March of Dimes to fight polio. The design was prepared by John Arsenic, the chief engraver of the United States Mint at the time. His initials, JS, appear at the truncation of Roosevelt's neck. On the obverse front, you'll see the inscriptions Liberty Award that appears on virtually all U.S. coins and reflects a core national ideal reaching back to the Revolution. In God We Trust, the national motto that first appeared on some U.S. coins during the Civil War and became mandatory on all coins by the mid-20th century, the date 2004, and the P mint mark. Flip it to the reverse back and you'll see a central torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, with the surrounding legends United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and the denomination 1 dime. That trio of symbols is deliberate. The torch stands for liberty and enlightenment, the olive branch for peace, and the oak branch for strength and independence. Together, they condense a lot of mid-century American self-image into a compact emblem. E pluribus unum Latin for out of many. One is one of the United States' earliest mottos, appearing on coins since the late 18th century too. Captured the idea of many states uniting into a single federal republic. Technically speaking, your 2000 for P dime is a clad coin. Since 1965, dimes and quarters and half dollars, except special silver issues, have been struck in a copper core sandwiched between cupronickel 75% copper, 25% nickel outer layers, giving an overall composition of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. It weighs 2.268 grams, measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter, has a reeded edge, those fine vertical grooves that also help deter shaving metal from the edge, and is made for durability in commerce rather than intrinsic bullion value. Dimes of this modern clad era are produced in massive quantities, hundreds of millions to well over a billion per mint per year, so a 2000 for P from circulation is worth face value 10 cents unless it is in pristine, uncirculated condition. Graded very high by a third-party service, think MS67 or MS68, with clean, satiny surfaces and strong full bands detail across the torch, or unless it possesses a dramatic mint error. Collectors do watch for error and variety pieces, missing clad layers that reveal the copper core, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped plankets, significant die cracks, double dies, or transitional-looking wrong planchet strikes. Most minor anomalies add only a small premium. Spectacular, eye-catching errors can be much more valuable. Proof dimes for 2004 exist too, but they were struck at San Francisco as mint mark for collectors, in both standard cupronickel and special 90% silver compositions within the annual proof sets. Your P coin is a circulation issue. Now, you also wrote Liberty Eaglite Fraternity, Republic, La Griffoule. That clearly evokes the French Republican motto Liberté, Eaglite, Fraternite Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, the word Republic, as in Republique Francaise, and the surname La Griffoule, which you will indeed find on certain French medals and coins as the engraver's or sculptor's signature. Whereas the U.S. mottos focus on federal unity, trust in God, and liberty, the French triad comes from the French Revolution and was progressively institutionalized, associated with 1789 ideals, adopted officially during the Second Republic. In 1848, fell in and out of formal favor across the 19th century, and finally cemented in the Third Republic and 20th century constitutions. You'll often see it engraved on French civic buildings and on many coins and medals, typically in that exact order and with diacritics, Liberté, Eaglite, Fraternite. French Republican coins also very frequently place Republique Francaise, prominently making clear the issuing polity, much as United States of America does on U.S. coins, and just as American coin designs are commonly credited to artists like John Sinek, Adolphe Weinman, Augustus St. Gaudens, or James O. Fraser, whose initials or monograms often appear. French coins and medals bear the signatures of their sculptors, engravers. The surname La Griffoule belongs to a French sculptor, medalist whose name you sometimes see in tiny letters on French numismatic art. That signature is the maker's mark, not a monetary motto or a political legend. If you have a specific French piece in hand, the full inscription and date would let you pin down exactly which artist and issue it is. So, if you have an object in front of you that mashes together one dime to O for P and Liberté, Eaglite, Fraternite, Republic, La Griffoule, you may actually have two different items, a modern US dime and a French metal coin, or a metal, token, or fantasy, novelty piece that borrows US and French iconography together, genuine. US dimes will never say Republic or Liberté, Eaglite, Fraternite. They will always stress United States of America, E pluribus unum, liberty, in God we trust, and the denomination one dime. Conversely, authentic French Republic coins will not say United States of America, in God we trust, or one dime. They use centimes, francs, or euros as denominations, and their mottos and legends are in French or en euro. Coins, they follow the pan-European standards with national designs on one side. If you're trying to identify, value, or authenticate what you've got, the key is to write down every word exactly as it appears, including accents and punctuation, the date, any visible initials or signatures, the metal color, diameter, weight, and its style. And then compare those data to standard coin catalogs for U.S. coins. Think of the Red Book or online mintages, variety guides. For French coins, the Gadery catalog or other European references. For modern U.S. clad dimes, condition grade and errors are what tend to matter. For French metals carrying the motto and a medallist's signature, artist, mintage, material bronze, silver, gold, and aesthetic merit dominate value. A short detour on mottos helps to see the conceptual contrast. E pluribus unum started as a unifying device aimed at political pluralism. Many states, one nation. In God We Trust, which became legally enshrined much later, reflects religious sentiment and national identity during and after the Civil War and the Cold War. Liberté, égalité, fraternité, on the other hand, is a triptych of social and civic virtues that revolutionaries and later Republicans wanted to bake into the state's DNA. In numismatic form, mottos are more than decoration. They're pin-sized ideologies, repeated billions of times into daily life. The U.S. dime carries those ideas with a stark, modernist reverse of a torch and branches. The French pieces often express their ideals via personifications like Marianne, the Soir la Semeuse, allegorical liberty, or through clean typographic statements of the motto itself. Both traditions commonly credit their designers. Cynic on the dime, Lagerfeld, and many others on French art metals and coinage. If you plan to store or submit a 2004 dime for grading, remember that uncirculated examples straight from bank rolls are the best candidates. Look for sharp detail in Roosevelt's hair and ear, minimal contact marks, a smooth, lustrous surface, and on the reverse, well-defined lines on the torches, horizontal bands. Full bands is a pride point for dime specialists, although it's more famous on Mercury dimes. For error hunting, a loop 10 times and good lighting are essential. Check the rims for clips, the surface for split plating or missing clad layers. You'll see obvious reddish copper where the outer nickel layer is gone, the strike for doubling, and the overall alignment for off-center or broad-struck characteristics. Because 2004 dimes are plentiful, minor anomalies rarely bring big money. But dramatic, certified errors can dot. Conversely, if you're curious about the French side of your phrase, dive into the world of art metals pieces that are not meant for circulation as money but for commemoration, award, or artistic expression. These often carry expansive inscriptions, rich allegories, and the full name or signature of the sculptor medalist, such as Lagerfeld. Their value depends on the prestige of the issuing body, the artist's stature, the quality of the strike, and the metal. Catalogs, auction archives, and specialized societies like the Société Française de Numismatique are the right places to research those. To wrap it together, a 2004 Roosevelt dime is a standard, modern U.S. 10-cent coin, copper nickel, clad with mottos and symbols rooted in American political and cultural history. Liberté, égalité. The next up, top 6, the coin inscribed with Liberty, égalité, fraternite 1 dime 2014 P. United States of America e pluribus unum. In God We Trust, Liberty, Republic. Lagerfeld appears to be a mix of references to both American and French numismatic traditions, as well as the work of famous French sculptor and medalist Pierre Lagerfeld. In reality, the official U.S. dime of 2014 features President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, along with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, 2014, and the mint mark P indicating it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint on the reverse. The coin bears the torch, olive branch, and oak branch design symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength, along with the inscriptions United States of America, e pluribus unum, and 1 dime. The phrase Liberty, égalité, fraternite, however, is the national motto of France and does not appear on any U.S. coinage. Similarly, Republic, and the name Lagerfeld are tied to French medallic art rather than American coins. It seems that this reference is either to a commemorative or fantasy piece, or perhaps a misinterpretation of different coinage elements combined. If this coin is indeed a fantasy or commemorative piece, its design may have drawn inspiration from both the ideals of the United States and France. The mention of Lagerfeuille could be linked to Pierre Lagerfeuille (1895 to 1988), a renowned French engraver and sculptor known for creating medallions and coin designs with themes of liberty, peace, and fraternity. He was highly respected for his ability to blend classical symbolism with modern artistry, often incorporating allegorical figures such as liberty. In this context, Liberté Égalité Fraternité, the French Revolutionary motto meaning liberty, equality, fraternity, might have been paired with American symbols such as the Torch of Freedom and the motto "In God We Trust" to create a hybrid artistic representation. Such designs are common in medallic art or privately minted fantasy tokens that celebrate shared democratic values between nations. Historically, the U.S. dime has undergone significant evolution since its inception in 1796. The 2014 Roosevelt Dime continues a long tradition that began in 1946 to honor the late President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was a champion of the March of Dimes campaign against polio. Struck in a copper-nickel composition, the 2014 P-Dime is a circulation strike with billions minted, making it common and widely available. However, collectors often see coins with special finish, proof strikes, or mint errors. By contrast, French coinage bearing Liberté Égalité Fraternité often features depictions of Marianne, a symbol of the French Republic, and is crafted with a different artistic flair than American coins. A coin that combines these elements with Lagerfeuille's name would likely be a modern artistic creation rather than official currency. In terms of symbolism, the U.S. dime's reverse imagery torch, olive branch, and oak branch aligns closely with universal values of enlightenment, peace, and strength. When juxtaposed with the French motto of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the combined message would speak to the enduring ideals of democracy, freedom, and human dignity shared across nations. The presence of e pluribus unum, Latin for out, of many, one, further reinforces the American identity of unity amidst diversity, a principle that resonates with the French Revolutionary call for collective fraternity. While no official U.S. mint dime of 2014 bears the full inscription cited, this blend of French and American motifs reflects a cultural dialogue expressed through coinage and medallic art. The next up, top 7, the coin you described, inscribed with Liberté Égalité Fraternité 1 dime 2020 D United States of America e pluribus unum in God we trust Liberty Republic Lagerfeuille, is an intriguing mix of both American and French cultural motifs, suggesting either a commemorative or conceptual design rather than an official U.S. mint issue. Let's break down its elements and provide a detailed, historical, and symbolic narrative. First, the denomination 1 dime refers to the standard 10-cent coin of the United States, which has been minted since 1796. The official U.S. dime currently features Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse since 1946 and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. It bears national mottos like Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum, which is Latin for out of many, one. The date 2020 and the mint mark D indicate the Denver Mint, which is one of the primary U.S. mints along with Philadelphia, San Francisco, and West Point. However, your description includes French Revolutionary ideals, liberty, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, brotherhood, which is the national motto of France, officially adopted during the French Revolution in the late 18th century. This motto emphasizes universal human rights, social equality, and collective unity principles that also deeply resonate with American values as expressed during the era of independence. The name Republic Lagerfeuille seems to refer to a French engraver, perhaps a nod to Daniel Lagerfeuille, a renowned French medalist and coin designer. This raises the possibility that the coin might be a private or artistic issue, blending U.S. and French elements to symbolize the shared democratic ideals of both nations. Both France and the United States have a long-standing historical connection. with France being a crucial ally during the American Revolutionary War 1775 to 1783, providing both financial and military aid that led to American independence. The Statue of Liberty, gifted by France in 1886, stands as a monument to this friendship and to shared values of freedom and democracy. The blending of liberty common to both countries with eaglite and fraternite may reflect this deep cultural and political synergy. The phrase e pluribus unum, as you wrote it, seems to be a misreading or artistic variation of e pluribus unum, which has been a central motto of the U.S. since 1776. This phrase originally referred to the unity of the 13 colonies forming one nation, but over time it has come to symbolize the unity of diverse cultures, states, and people in America. Alongside "In God We Trust," which was added to U.S. coinage in the 19th century, these mottos reinforce the ideals of unity, faith, and liberty. Regarding the date 2020, this year was historically significant. It marked the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, a period in which both the United States and France played crucial roles as allies against fascism. It was also a year of global upheaval due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which tested the principles of fraternity and equality worldwide. A coin combining French and American ideals issued or imagined in 2020, could this symbolize international solidarity and resilience? The inclusion of liberty twice, both as a U.S. motto and within the French triad, emphasizes freedom as a universal right. The reference to republic could further symbolize the idea of governance by the people, a key concept both in the U.S. Republic and the French Republic. If this coin is commemorative or artistic, it may have been intended as a token of unity, international friendship, or in homage to the Enlightenment values that shape modern democracies. In terms of design, one could imagine the obverse featuring a portrait, possibly of liberty as a female allegorical figure, something common in both French and American coinage. For example, the seated liberty design of 1837 to 1891, or France's Marianne. The reverse might combine elements like the torch of Roosevelt Dimes with French symbols such as the Phrygian cap or laurel wreaths. The engraver Lagerfeld may have contributed to the artistic blending of these symbols, creating a piece that is not just monetary, but also deeply symbolic. In conclusion, the Liberty Eaglite Fraternite 1 Dime 2020 D-coin, whether real or conceptual, stands as a representation of shared democratic ideals, historical alliances, and the enduring pursuit of liberty, equality, and fraternity. It merges two powerful cultural legacies: the American emphasis on freedom and unity, and the French focus on equality and brotherhood. If it is a real coin or medallion, it would likely be a collector's item, valued for its historical and symbolic narrative rather than its face value. This blend of slogans and design elements highlights a common philosophical heritage that continues to inspire nations worldwide.